not going to go too long, that will be a surprise to many people because I think I'm talking to the converted. But what I would like to say is that I think the momentum is definitely shifting towards yes. There's no other reason that I can actually think of why the three parties within Better Together should actually, for the very first time, actually show a united front and should actually choose the same subject matter and do a concerted attack in the way that they've done. That is an absolute knee-jerk reaction and panic to something that they know and that we know, and that is that yes is climbing and they are declining. And I don't think there's any doubt at all about that. And we have actually been dominating the landscape in terms of social policy, social welfare. They want us off that whole issue because we're winning the argument in terms of welfare state and social justice and constitution, which is written, which guarantees rights. So they have to then start going off on a tangent, and the tangent they're taking us off is currency. Now, somebody tonight may want to ask a question about currency, and if you don't, I'll tell you anyway. Currency is a dod of paper. The piece of paper says, I promise to pay the bearer on demand, the sum of, and the sum of £5 means £5 in gold. The reason currency was invented is because the Knights Templar used to carry big bags of gold all about the place when they were travelling back and forth to the Holy Land, but they kept getting mugged. So they decided this is not very good. So what they did was they invented currency. A piece of paper in England, a piece of paper in the Holy Land, and what had happened is you went to the place, the bank as it was, and you exchanged the piece of paper for gold. So you didn't have to carry it, you just got it whenever you arrived at your destination. Currency hasn't changed in all these years. It's still a piece of paper that says, I promise to pay the bearer on demand. Right? So don't get too much into fixation about what kind of currency we're going to have. What's really important is, how wealthy is the nation and how much gold reserve has the nation got which can back up that currency? And all the evidence in front of us is that Scotland is a very rich nation, and when Scotland is independent, it will be the 8th richest nation in the world. Right? So, if push came to a shove, and we're not going to do it, but just for a wee laugh, if they decided they were not going to let us play with their currency, we could actually all go down to our wee barrister, the Bank of England, say, can we have our gold please, and then we'll all back up to Scotland, stick in Edinburgh Castle. Right? That's all currency is. I'm not being flippant about it. People get too tied up in terms of this. We could equally turn around and say we want tied into the sterling through negotiation because it's in the best interest of Scotland and England to do it. And if it is in the best interest of Scotland and England to do it, because we've already built up the relationships over the years, and because we already have trading arrangements with each other, and we are doing 60 billion trading across the border just now, why upset that by turning around and having to do a separate currency? But if push came to a shove, we still wouldn't have to change away from sterling. The Scottish pound and the English pound, and to paraphrase Rabbi Burns, a pound's a pound for all that. And it will continue to be a pound, it's a pound for all that. They want us to go off at that tangent as if it's some major crisis. The reality is, whenever we vote yes and we get into negotiations with the Bank of England, it won't be George Osborne who takes the decisions. It won't be Ed Balls who takes the decisions. The people who will take the decisions are the people who have always taken decisions when it comes to money. It'll be international finance. It'll be international capitalism. It'll be Americans, it'll be everybody else in the world turning and taking a look at economic stability. The people in England turning and saying, I'm not screwing up my business just because of your ideology. And the banks turning and saying, really, we can make this work if you just let us. So it'll be the international financiers and the banks and the businesses who will make the determination of what actually happens by way of currency. And it'll be negotiated. I'm not precious about it. If we can get a currency arrangement, I'm quite happy with that. If at the end of the day we can't get a currency arrangement, we don't need a plan B. We just carry on trading in the Scottish pound. End of story. Because we've got the wealth and we've got the money to back it up. It's not complicated. They try to make it that. So whenever you get all these stories, don't get knee-jerk reactions and don't go into a panic about it. Let them stay in that panic that they're in. And it'll all come back to haunt them as we go on. Debates going on, the pressure's rising, temperature's rising, and they're getting more and more hysterical. What we've got to do is keep our feet in the ground. Keep concentrating on what you're doing, keep concentrating on your positivity, keep concentrating on getting the leaflets out, keep concentrating on getting the messages out to doorsteps. You can't control the BBC, you can't control STV, you can't control the media, all the debates that will take place. You can't do anything about it, right? So just focus on what you can do, which is grassroots campaigning, getting the message out to people. And see, so long as we do that, and constantly do that, we're going to win.
Scotland can actually do something that bit different. We can actually make our own way in the world. We don't have to have what I would term to be this kind of millstone around our neck. We actually can do things for ourselves. When you look at the history, and granted some of the things that the famous Scots have actually contributed to the world, they've done it whilst Scotland's obviously part of the Union. But one of the things that actually helped them do what they did was a policy that's been discussed certainly very much today as well, and that's the issue of free education. Scotland is one of the first countries to actually introduce free education. And for me, education is an absolute right. It's not a privilege, it's an absolute right. And in terms of the policies that certainly have been introduced, certainly since 2007, on tuition fees, for me, I mean, that's something that's absolutely fundamental for anyone who actually wants to improve themselves, improve their abilities, and actually improve their opportunities in life. Oh, I mean, Danny, in some of Danny's comments earlier, which I wholeheartedly agree with. I mean, one of Danny's comments was in terms of the economics, with independence, OECD have said yes, Scotland can be the 8th richest country in the world. Now, if we were a basket case in terms of our economy, if we actually were as bad as the opposition want to actually make us out to be, then they would have got rid of us many years ago. So why do they want to hold on to us? What is the purpose for holding on to Scotland? It's not because they feel charitable. It's not because they feel generous to put wee Scotland just at the top of their country. It's because we've got something to offer, something to contribute. We've got a tremendous wealth, the wealth of the people, as well as the economic wealth, the economic generation that we've got. Whether it's oil and gas, whether it's the renewable sector, whether it's the financial sector, Scotland has got a tremendous amount to offer, and we all know that. And if we didn't have that, then the UK government, of whichever persuasion in the past, would have got rid of us a long time ago. 14% of Scotland's population are living in relative poverty. In a country that's wealthy, that should not be the case. The IFS, they've indicated that by 2020, this 14% is going to increase to 22.7%. That's in a wealthy country. That's wrong, that's fundamentally wrong. Last week in the Scottish Parliament, I had a members' debate on food banks and the increasing number of food banks in Scotland. In 2011, the Trussell Trust opened their first food bank in Scotland. 2014, that one has increased to 43. Now, I'm sorry, when you've got up to 55,000 people in Scotland relying upon emergency food aid to feed themselves, to feed their children, to feed their families, that is wrong. And I fundamentally despise that type of system that we have in Scotland, that we have across all of the UK, that forces that amount of people in Scotland to go and survive. Because that's not living, that's survival. It's up to 55,000 people in Scotland. It's estimated to be at least 500,000 people across the UK. Now, certainly from the Scottish perspective, we've got a chance to do something about it in September. The good folk down south, when you look at the parties and the policies and the comments that are coming out from the three UK-wide parties, there is no alternative to what they've got down there. I mean, Rachel Reeves, the shadow DWP spokesperson, in October of last year, turned around and said, in an article in The Observer, said that, well, they'll be tougher than the Tories when it comes to welfare. Now, I'm sorry. I mean, there are folk who are literally, they are starving. They've got nothing. And yet they've been forced to go to food banks to survive. So the welfare reform, the bedroom tax, are just kind of two of the issues, two of the things that are going on from Westminster. That we have got very little that we can do. It's about mitigation. That's all it's about. In terms of the Scottish Parliament at the moment, it's about mitigation. But I didn't get involved in politics to mitigate against anybody. That's not why I wanted to become an MSP. It's not why I joined the SNP. I didn't do it to mitigate against somebody. I did it because I want to actually I want Scotland to be a better country. I want Scotland to actually look after its citizens who need that assistance. I want Scotland to actually be a place where you can actually have opportunity. If you've got the opportunity, you can actually go in and deliver a bit more for yourself, for your family and for your community. That's what I want Scotland to be. Not a place where, well, we'll do the best we can with the mitigation measures that we can introduce, depending on what London's going to let us do. That's wrong. Fundamentally wrong. So in September the 18th, we've got that chance. We've got the chance to vote yes. We've got a chance to make Scotland a better country we actually want it to be. We've got a chance to actually get rid of mitigation and a chance to actually deliver and forge our own path, forge our own way forward. And that's what yes can actually do. That's what the umbrella group that we have, that's what we can deliver. And we go out, as long as we're out in the streets, we talk to people, we get the message over, and we inform people. We need to inform them about the ridiculous situation we actually face at the moment. And it's for me, I'll be up like all of us at the crack of dawn on the 18th of September, making sure getting the vote out, get the message out to people that you need to vote today, because people will vote. There's going to be a higher turnout, we all know that. And certainly go round, do the campaign to 10 o'clock, go to the count, and then I want to walk about on the 19th of September, and I want to actually sample the first day of Scotland on its way to becoming this normal, independent country. I actually want to enjoy and savour that day. And between now and then, going out, getting the newspapers delivered, knocking on doors, going to meetings, speak to your friends, speak to your family, speak to your colleagues, speak to anybody, because the issue of the independence referendum, that's all people are talking about. That's it. Anywhere I go, that's all people want to talk about. So it's there for the winning. And certainly the message I'll give to everybody in the room tonight, it's in the palm of our hands. It's up to you to want to grab it and take it and run with it and make sure we deliver it, or we're going to let it slip through our fingers. But I know we are going to win. So thanks very much.
I woke up this morning and I didn't smell any coffee at all. I could smell the fear. I watched Scotland Tonight last night, and I watched Newsnight Scotland, and I was ecstatic. They are running scared, and how happy does that make me? And I don't know if anybody watches Max Kaiser. I'm going to steal one of his comments. I think it's brilliant. Max Kaiser in Russia Today. He talks about the four men of the apocalypse. David Cameron, Nick Clegg, Ed Miliband. He talked about how we can give Ed Balls that wee title a day. And Nigel Farage, although he was away in Welly Books today, we didn't see much about him, did we? But those four men that are determined and have came together to try and convince us that the economy is what binds us together, and we know it's the economy that's pushing us apart. We don't even know what it is that we actually represent. And what they've basically done, as we all know, is they came out and said, get back into your wee box. Get back into your wee box and stay quiet. And we know Scottish people don't like that. We'll take a lot, we've got a terrible reputation for not being confident. But you tell us we're wrong and we'll tell you we're right. Because we are right. And they tried to stick us back in our wee box. And Danny rightfully talks about gold being what sets the economy in a country. We are the gold. We are the assets. Our labour, whether that's through factories, whether it's through the army, whether it's through anything, the oil industry, it's our labour that has brought assets to the United Kingdom, and they know that's what they're losing. They might be losing money, but they're losing us as well. But each of us has our own wee box. But for a woman, and that's why Women for Independence exists, for a woman that box can sometimes be harder to push out of. And we know that because it's only 20% of representation in Westminster as women. 20% of the whole Westminster is women. There was a brilliant thing on Facebook that day, and it was talking about David Cameron has had more dinners with men called Michael than he has with women at all. Because there's only 3 women in his cabinet, and there's 4 Michaels and there's 4 Johns. But actually, on a level, yes, it's funny, isn't it? But on a level, it's not. It's wrong. It is wrong. There is no representation for women in Westminster at this point. And we've spoke about at other meetings about even people who are in Westminster government are ignored when they're from Scotland. Scottish representation is regular losses the arguments. But as women we know as well, to be a partner in any relationship, you have to have equality. You have to have equality of responsibility and you have to have equality of rights. And under the current Westminster government rules, we don't have equality, and they talk about, oh, if we get independence, we'll need to negotiate the pound. How terrifying must that be for someone who's never had to negotiate anything with us? We will negotiate, and we will be there, and we will discuss, and we will take responsibility. Because as a country we know that, and as women we know that. We know that because women are overrepresented in poverty, in low-income families. We're overrepresented in caring responsibility, which makes it difficult for it to get out to meetings like this. And we also know that this is what politics is about. I've been in many meetings where you try to raise issues that are important to women: childcare, care for the elderly, low pay, not enough jobs, being underrepresented in the new employment things that are happening. And people say, always that, that's not, we're not talking about that today, we're talking about currency, we're not talking about, but that is the politics we live. The politics that women live every day, that doesn't get recognised as the politics of the country, is the politics of women, and that has to go on the agenda. If it doesn't go on the agenda, we're going to lose this fight after the independence vote, because I'm already there, we've won this, I'm off. I'm going to Iceland. I've decided that that advert was actually about Mum. That's why Mum's going to Iceland, because I'm off. I'm going to stay. But it is about the everyday politics. Well, sometimes that gets missed, and that's why often things like welfare and bedroom taxes and things like that are seen as these options for politicians. That has to change. Women are the cog in the wheel of our community. We are the ones that bring friends together, we are the ones that bring family together, we are the ones that go to the nursery and pick up the weans, we are the ones that go to school. And yes, those things are changing, and that's important and that's good. However, we're still there, the cog in the wheel, and all we're asking is that we change the conversation when we meet. That we listen to women as political beings, they will listen to each other, and we understand where we're coming from, and we make sure that comes back to the Yes campaign and the future negotiation. On the Constitution. The Constitution will embrace equality, can you believe it? Yeah, that can you in Iceland, So it's about getting women together in where safe places that they feel safe. It's about getting women together to talk about things that are important to them. And the media, I've always got to mention, the media would make us believe we're fickle, women are undecided, women haven't made up their mind, they're going to let the Yes campaign down. It is okay to ask questions. We should all ask questions. We don't need answers to ask questions. It always amazes me when people go, will what about this and this, and somebody goes, well, what would you do? That's not what I asked you. But we can ask questions without having the answers. But the time's come to decide, I'm afraid, for us in this room. We can't keep going like this. We need to be out in the street. We need to be engaged with people, because we know that as soon as people are engaged, and we know as soon as women are engaged, they've got it. They're frightened. They're scared, they're unsure, and Project Fear's doing its job, but when they've got somebody that will hold out a hand and really talk to them, they're not frightened anymore. They're together with us, and that's the beauty of the Yes campaign. So question yes, that it's time to decide and it's time to get active, because I don't know about any of yous, but I am sick to the back teeth of this wee box that keeps fitting me back in. I'm bigger than this box, we're all bigger than this box. And it's time for us to take control of our lives and our country's lives. Thanks very much.